Welcome back to Reading Bear. Today, we will take a look at some new revenge stories. And if you enjoyed my content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and post some bear emojis in the comments. Let's go!
The first one is titled, Take Advantage of Active Duty. You and your buddy are going down. Shouldn't have lied, sir. When this started, all I was trying to do was get out of paying for something I didn't need and never asked for. By the end, I was going for blood as someone else enacted their revenge. This happened back in 2002 at Marine Corps Recruit Depot San Diego. I was stationed down the way at 32nd Street Naval Base for my military occupation specialty school and was a new Lance Corporal E3 at the time. I had a 1994 Dodge Spirit with 180k miles or so, and I'd just driven it across the country. I bought it a few days before leaving KS at an auto auction. A couple of weeks into my school, it died at the gate next to the sentry. After an initial freak out that I was a bomber and the subsequent search of me and my car, everyone calms down, and they help push my car to the top of the hill, so I can coast down the other side and into the auto repair shop parking lot, which, thankfully, went without incident. Before I go in, I call my dad and then his cousin. My dad knows a ton about cars, and his cousin is a mechanic with his own very successful shop, like a dozen work bays, and they handle everything from regular cars to farm equipment to semis. I know a fair bit about cars on my own, but he knows everything. Between us, we decide it looks like the distributor or the distributor cap is the issue. My dad's cousin says it's a common issue on spirits from this time and recommends I get it fixed here by a real mechanic. Now at this point, it's important to note his shop did a very thorough once-over for me after I bought the car and gave me good notes on the condition of the car in writing from his shop. I go in and talk to the guy at the counter. They're not too busy and pull it into a bay and run their diagnostics. Same thing. Distributor cap. Cool. I get the services agreement saying they'll replace it and call me if they find anything else. I hear nothing until the end of the week when they call and say my car is ready. When I get there, they present me with a bill for like $1,400. Wow. Just wow. Now my heart has stopped beating, and I say something about that being a lot for a distributor cap. The guy who owns the place, I find out he's a veteran from way back, breaks off talking to a Master Sergeant MSGT E8 and comes over to talk to me. He starts telling me about how it was much worse than they originally thought, and they ended up having to replace my radiator, plus hoses, and my timing belt and a head gasket. I'm still in shock and say something like the head gasket was fine 2 weeks ago and so was the radiator and the timing. He puts his hand on my shoulder and tells me I don't know what I'm talking about because they've been waiting to fail for a long time now. I'm confused now and say that that's not possible. I bought it 2 weeks ago and... He cuts me off and says I was sold a complete lemon, and I should have had it checked. He says he felt bad for me, and this should have cost over $2,000, but he cut me a deal, and he can work with me in an installment plan but will have to charge me interest. Now I'm suspicious and starting to get upset, and I say the only repair I authorized was a distributor cap, and they should have called me before doing anything else, and I start to explain that I've got paperwork from the inspection I had done that said those other things were fine. I'm going to get it from the car, and the Master Sergeant grabs me by the arm and starts telling me I'm being ungrateful and disrespectful to a respected mechanic and business owner and asks me if I'm implying he's cheating me. Every time I try to open my mouth, he cuts me off and keeps telling the owner not to worry and that he'll make sure this young pup pays what is owed. He's threatening to take me over to admin and have my pay docked. Now I'm angry and a bit scared. Another Marine intervenes and says that's a little extreme and to let me say my piece. I get permission to get into my car to get my maintenance history, which includes an oil change, the inspection documentation, and the original quote for the distributor cap work. At this point, there's a crowd of customers and some other passers-by. The owner of the garage and Master Sergeant are in full theater mode talking about how I'm not appreciating the huge help they've been, and I'm trying to get out of paying for work I asked for. Now I'm mostly just upset. I come in, and the Master Sergeant cuts me off and tells me to be careful how I talk to his friend. I ask the Master Sergeant if he's going to let me speak or keep interrupting me while I'm in a private conversation with a business owner. I ask him if he owns part of the shop, no, and ask why he's so interested in not hearing a Marine out. Then I get out the original statement of services and say the distributor cap is all I agreed to. I also ask why he didn't call me, and he says he called my barracks several times and left messages including ones telling me the car was undrivable until the repairs were made, so he went with the lowest cost option to get me back on the road. Oops. I say, that's interesting. The only number I gave you is my cell phone, and I don't have any messages or even attempted calls until the previous evening when they left a message that my car was ready. I show everyone my call history, including a captain who's very interested and standing quietly by. The master sergeant has backed off, and the captain is quietly talking to him off on the side. Now the owner is backpedaling a bit and saying he was thinking of a different customer, but he's already made the replacement and has to charge me for the work. Then I pull out the stuff from the inspection, and it has some fun little statements in it. Statements like, timing belt good, timing good. Check again in 30k miles. Radiator appears to be recently replaced. All hoses new in last 6 months. Nothing on the head gasket, but there's a statement that there are no leaks in that area, which was why he said he had to replace it. I say he can put all of my original stuff back on because all I'm paying for is the distributor cap work. He gets red-faced and starts demanding I pay for the labor, and he can't put things back on because they were too badly damaged in the removal process. Now some old retired guy chimes in from the back and asks, what kind of mechanic damages things when they take them apart? The owner drags out my radiator, and there is a giant hole in one side that looks like it was stabbed with a crowbar. Now a couple of other people, locals, are questioning past situations where he helped them out with repairs they didn't know they needed. The master sergeant tried to walk off, and a colonel and a sergeant major in civilian attire post him to the side for a later conversation. The captain pulls me aside and asks to see the info I have and to see my phone again and steps behind the counter to photocopy it all. He has a truly evil grin. Turns out, he's a prior enlisted former infantry marine who became an officer after going back to college. He has suspected this shop of being crooked for a while but never had enough proof. He's on the commanding general's staff, and they were looking into complaints from permanent personnel and retirees in the area. The owner is sweating bullets now. I only pay for the distributor cap and get a statement that says my balance is 0, so he doesn't try anything in the future. The captain takes me to dinner and gets my info and basically a statement from me of what happened. After dinner, he takes me back to his office while he types up something for me to sign about the whole incident, and I call Verizon to get him to fax over the incoming, outgoing calls from my number from the past week. He explains that the master sergeant has been steering a lot of customers to his buddy, and they suspect he's getting kickbacks. The captain and several others have been taking their cars there for months to try to catch the guy doing what he did to me. The master sergeant sealed his fate when he started threatening to take my pay. They suspected he was getting kickbacks or favors in exchange for hooking up his buddy. Now he has the justification he needs to formally look into the master sergeant. The captain was thrilled and bought me a 6-pack for using up so much of my Friday evening. I wasn't around long enough to see the outcome, but when I left, there were auditors from base services going through the business with a fine-tooth comb, and it was a legal matter. Once something like that gets started, it probably means business, and the owners will get kicked out of the on-base location. The base owns the building and the owner leases it. He and his business would also end up blacklisted as a place known for taking advantage of service members. Most commands give this out to people who check in, so no one patronizes them. It still boggles my mind that one veteran would try to use that status to take advantage of others. Or that a senior Marine would do that to other Marines. I know there are people out there like that, but having the shared common background we do, I expect better. The next one is titled, "You Fired the Wrong Guy." This ending is so fierce. After I came back from Kosovo with the US Army, I got lucky once and landed a really great job. I was contracted to work as a liaison in several parts of the world. Our team would basically go somewhere, figure out what needed to be done, then make it happen. For example, my first assignment was back in Kosovo, and several towns needed various construction projects. Think like a bridge over a creek, a town community center, a waste treatment plant, etc. We coordinated with the Army, NATO, the EU, dozens of contractors, and would get the jobs done. We would secure funding, then hire contractors, and in some places, we were involved in hiring workers as a means of stimulating the local economy. The first team I worked with was amazing. We were able to get so much accomplished and genuinely enjoyed working together. We also had to figure out how to do everything. Our instructions were, go to, insert place. Find out what needs to be done. Get it done. Somehow, we figured it out. Sometimes they were happy accidents. We made $1 million deal because we accidentally ran into the guy we needed to contact for funding in a random bar. We had been trying to find him for days and then found him in a bar at lunch. Sometimes we worked long days, as much as 20 hours, and sometimes on weekends. Other times, we had very little to do. In our off time, we explored the areas and went to bars and restaurants. It was honestly one of the best jobs ever. Anyway, eventually our contracts ran out, and I was the only one who signed on for another year. My teammates had families, and I was single at the time. When I met the new team, I knew almost instantly that this was going to suck. A team consisted of 4 people, a manager, and 3 liaisons. The 2 other liaisons were among the 2 unhappiest people I've ever met, and I could never figure out why. Those guys griped and complained about everything. We all got great pay, and often it was tax-exempt, we were generally safe, and we usually had fairly comfortable lodging where we went, but they were never happy. You could shower those guys in the most beautiful escorts in the world, and they would call you cheap because you got them, used hookers. One of the places we went, we were easily living in the nicest hotel in the city, with probably the best suites they offered, but the shower doesn't get hot enough, and I have to filter water to drink it. We were on the only floor in the building where the suites had their own showers or running water. Even worse than those 2 guys was our manager. Whoever taught this guy about leadership should be flogged. He supposedly learned from being an officer in the US Army and also from his business degree at UCLA, but somewhere along the lines, he missed all the lessons about teamwork, management, and literally anything related to managing a team. When we met, I told him that I would be happy to help him start building a relationship with all our contacts and make his transition for the new team as seamless as possible. His response, I'm in charge of this team. We are going to change some things to start doing it right. Okay. He also decided to lay down the law, again reasserting that he was the boss. Also, the new rules were no consumption or possession of alcohol, and no leaving the lodging or workplace in off-duty hours. We worked from 6 a.m. to 5 p.m. local time, Monday through Friday. Basically, on our off-duty hours, we stayed in our rooms or within whatever facility we were lodged in. You're not here to be on vacation, you're here to get your jobs done. We were back in southeastern Europe at the time, and I had a lady friend in town. No way in hell am I staying in my room and twiddling my thumbs. I told him right away that there was no chance that I was going to comply with his commandments, that company policy was clear that as long as there was no imminent safety risk, and that we were free to do as we wished in our free time. To claim, as safety required, he tried to prove that his measures were necessary. I said, this is not the military. You do not own all my time. So yeah, off to a really great start. It was less than 2 weeks before it came to a head. We had gotten nothing done. Nothing. The manager refused to use the contacts I had acquired over the last year, instead preferring to go through official channels. So, I started just doing stuff myself. I made the calls, I got the funding, hired contractors, etc. And went and saw my lady friend after hours. He had this really funny thing he did where he would yell at me for going behind his back, but then put his name on my tickets and pass the work off as his own. I got sick of this, along with the crybaby brothers not doing anything. A shouting match ensued. I pointed out his glaring incompetence. He was mad that I didn't follow orders like a soldier. In the end, he got me fired. I tried to fight it, but apparently he was buddies with someone higher up in the company. I had the last laugh though. Just before I turned in my laptop and cell phone, I went through and deleted everything. Some of the files that I couldn't get in trouble for keeping, I saved to my own computer. But the rest were gone. This was all my contacts, all my notes, how to get money, where to get contractors, private numbers for hundreds of people. In the hands of even a moderately competent person, this was a gold mine of information. All gone. I spent a while just kind of floating around before eventually going home. Apparently, as soon as I was gone, the old manager opened up my laptop and went to go through all my files and was enraged that it was all gone. The whole team was eventually disbanded when, after another 2 months, they were still floundering, unable to accomplish anything. The next one is titled, Messing with the Lying Smokers. I was staying in my sister's rental property, which overlooks my rental property, while mine was being rented for a few days. I was staying at mine for most of the summer but would bounce around if one was rented out. We don't allow smoking of indoors or outdoors on the property. This means the deck, driveway, or small yard area. If you are on the sidewalk, that's fine. I could smell smoke on and off for most of the week this group was there. After this group checked out, I went back to my place and there were cigarette butts on the deck and underneath in the dirt. They were charged for smoking and tried to dispute it by saying that they think it was from the overlooking property due to the proximity. I could have easily said that I witnessed it and it would be over quickly, but I thought this would be a good time to mess with them. I acted concerned and responded with a picture of the deck areas of both units and asked them to point out where they think it came from. Completing playing dumb. When they responded by pointing out my sister's deck, the only possible place it could have come from, I said, "Oh no, that was me staying up there and I didn't do that." They were still charged and I hope they felt stupid. Since everyone is so concerned that smoking is not allowed outside the property, these are the following reasons. 1. My insurance is lower because I explicitly say no smoking inside or outside. 2. It is in a national forest. There are dry pine needles everywhere. 3. There is a gas-heated hot tub on the deck. The next one is titled, Don't Cut This Dad in Line. And he knows that time is valuable. So, for Christmas one year, my parents got us season passes for Six Flags. We used those passes often throughout the summer as a family and had an amazing time. It was one of these days that it happened. We waited in line for one of the more popular lines, which were at the 45-minute wait point. This was relatively good for this ride as you can wait for up to an hour and a half at its busiest points. We got into line excited to share this ride with our dad as it's one of the few he can ride as he has a bad back injury that makes just walking around extremely painful at times. We were in line laughing and making jokes while watching the little TVs they have at various points in the line when a group of people rudely cut us and stood in front of us. Our dad has a habit of not letting things slide, so we all braced for cover waiting for our dad to go off on these people for cutting us when, to our surprise, he didn't say anything. With confused looks, we turned to our dad wondering why he hadn't told them off and to get behind us. He just looked at us with a look in his eyes saying, "Wait for it." We shrugged it off and continued our wait. We didn't make it too far into the line at this point, so it was still about a 45-minute wait. As we got closer to the front of the line, we got more and more excited waiting to get on the ride with our dad and have a great time. The way the line is set up is before you get into the loading station, there is a two-way staircase that has the regular line on one side, and the fast pass line on the other, and at the top of the stairs, there are workers making sure the people in the fast pass line are supposed to be there. This is where my dad strikes. After waiting the 45 minutes in line behind the cutters, we stood at the top of the stairs, and my dad signaled for a worker's attention. Once he received it, he pointed to the group that had cut us, and calmly stated that they had cut us at the beginning of the line. The work then politely told the group they would need to leave the line and go back to the beginning. They were upset but followed the instructions and left the line. The worker thanked my father for informing them, and suddenly pieces pushed into place in our mind. Our dad purposely waited until the very last minute to make him have to wait another 45 minutes, plus more time as the line was longer now than it was later in the day, and more people arrived. I couldn't help but laugh as I watched them walk out of the line and back towards the beginning and just hope that they learned their lesson not to cut after that. The last one is titled, Think You Can Prank Me? I'll have your camper towed. My wife's best friend Karen is a harpy from hell. She makes everyone, even my wife sometimes, miserable. She also thinks she is smarter than everyone and just stuck up enough to believe no one would dare cross her. So, a friend of ours, who I'll call Bill, bought a piece of property next door to us. He had a bad car accident in November and lives an hour away. He made me a legal agent of the property, which means I have almost as much power as he does. Think property manager. It has a small house on it that is unoccupied, but I keep an eye on things. He bought the property only because next to the house is a big asphalt parking lot. It used to be a lot for a small used car company. His reasoning was that during the bad winter months, he could park equipment and trucks from his other companies there. So, he also had me put up huge, "No parking. Violators will be towed at owner's expense" signs all around it. Moving on. So, Sunday, I'm elbow deep into an RC submersible when my wife bursts into my study, yells for me to listen to something. I take the phone, and who is doing a live video? Karen. Karen was talking about how she was going away for a few days, this was Sunday morning, because she was so stressed out from always giving people advice and helping them through their problems, etc. And then she mentioned, again, what my wife told me. She talked about how she parked her 46-foot, fifth-wheel, $35,000 camper next door to me, and seeing Bill was unreachable this week. I would have to look at it for the next 3 days as a reminder that she is not only smarter but 10 moves ahead of me. And I'm an idiot because I wouldn't loan her a truck, and it cost her money to rent one. Turns out, she told her husband, who is gone during the week for work, that she had Bill's permission to put it there, so early Sunday morning, he towed it over there. I was upset. She has a tendency to lie, so I went outside, and there it was. Parked right there in the middle of the lot was her camper. I actually smiled because I had a perfect plan. As being a manager of the property, I also had a right to have any vehicle towed off there, including that one. I had 2 options: call Garage A, which was owned by a nice guy who doesn't charge the state maximum for the tow and storage fees. Explain what happened, and he might cut you a break. Then there is Garage B. He doesn't care if he only has to tow your car 15 feet, he is charging you the max and always charges the maximum storage fees. So, you're damn right I went with Garage B. I called the guy, gave him my name, told him I manage the property and to bring a 5th wheel. He had it gone in less than a half hour. This is the best part yet, my friends. I didn't tell her it was towed until yesterday morning. Yes, I waited from Sunday afternoon until Tuesday morning. Yesterday morning, she is on Facebook live streaming from her car talking about how I was going to go visit her camper for another laugh. Then I got on live. My wife sent her a message to get on my live stream. When she was viewing, I said this. Hey, Karen. Hope you had a wonderful time. I have to tell you something. I had your camper towed. With me being the property manager, and Bill being unavailable, I had to have it towed. We can't let people think they can just park on there illegally. XYZ Tow has the camper. I was going to call you Sunday, but you seemed so stressed out that I thought you deserved the break. I mean, the camper is safe. That's all that matters, right? Well, Facebook lit up like a Christmas tree. As I had hoped, those watching her stream followed because, well, they were curious too, and then the messages started. A few condemned me, but most were supportive. Some thought it was about time someone showed her that she wasn't all too powerful, and no one was scared of her. Then it went quiet. Now a normal person might be upset, but understandable, but she went the wounded Karen route. That afternoon, she got back on again. She was crying, fake crying, about how it was going to cost her over $2,000 in fees because her husband wouldn't be back until Friday to tow it back. And asked if someone please do it for her, a bonus I was hoping would happen, and that if she started a GoFundMe page, if people would donate to help her pay the fees. The answers to that were between no and duck no. But hey, she didn't threaten to sue me at least, right? Side note, Bill is unavailable this week, except to certain people, which I am part of. I called him and told him the whole story. His answer was exactly, good. You want to play games? Then be prepared to lose. The camper is still there. No one volunteered to get it. A few said they would for gas money, but she tried to play it off as it would be helping her and that she owed so much in fees and that she would owe them a favor no one could collect on because she has nothing to bargain with. Thanks for listening.